So after a long film festival life, which began at the Berlinale, we are at the juncture of the domestic Canadian release, and the first quarter release is set for the US next year. As a fan of Les Démons and Genèse, I want to say that Comme le feu, aka Who by Fire, is a major oeuvre in your early film canyon, so congratulations, Philippe. I wanted to get the importance of geography for you. You had mentioned at the Q&A at the New York Film Fest, the post Q&A that I'd seen, a rather interesting point. You talked about boreal forests and how Quebec, what we see at the onset is we get a sense that it's very vast and dense, but that there's this whole part that's missing. Like the forest that we see from the roadside, the picturesque stuff, there's a lot of stuff that we don't see. And I thought there was an interesting parallel between the embodiment of the film and what's happening with these characters and this idea of the boreal forest. So just talk to me about the choice of the geographic location and sort of like the depths and the layers of what that signified to you at the onset.
Well, it's not. I mean, of course, it's not the first thing that I thought about when I started to write the script. I mean, it was like, you know, the basic of the story was really like to get into this kind of this young boy, you know, aspiring a filmmaker, passionate about cinema, and he has a chance to go and meet, you know, one of his idols in this isolated, you know, wood, you know, like a lodge cabin in the woods, and then when I was shooting the film, because there's a lot of, you know, I tend to think that it's a kind of for me, it's super important to always, you know, the moment where I start to shoot a film, I always say that I throw the script in the garbage bin. In that sense that, you know, a film needs to die, you know, in many phases, and it needs to die after, you know, the script needs to die, and then it resurrect during the shooting, and then the shooting must die also, and then resurrect, you know, into the editing. And I really believe that. And so when we were shooting those, I leave a lot of space for the spontaneous and the, you know. So when we were shooting the film, we shot the film in 2 different regions because I wanted it seems like it's only one region, but, you know, we shot all over the place in Quebec. Sometimes, you know, 10 hours from, you know, distance from here and from the each, you know, of the location. And then we were just, you know, we were like in this small town in Quebec, and I discovered like this huge, you know, wood mill. Is it like yeah? And it was like gigantic, and it was like kilometers of chopped wood, you know, like that you could see. And I said, we really need to put that in the film. And it needs to be Alyosha, you know, who's you know, who needs to discover that kind of hypocrisy.
Yes.
Because we're kind of proud of our landscape, and, you know, we think that Canada is like beautiful forest, but it's also, you know, it's been completely destroyed, and sometimes, you know, of course they put trees again, but it takes, you know, like decades, you know, before and it's really true when you look above from, you know, you see the beautiful rose, and you see, and then I thought it was so beautiful that she just, you know, obviously, you know, the car stops so she can, you know, go you know, pee in the woods, and then she discovers this, you know, and she discovers this huge wood mill, and it was just like. It's a beginning of the film, so it tells like, okay, be aware that, you know, we shouldn't always trust the appearances, and there's this kind of I associate this tendency maybe to destroy the forest with also the impulse of the male characters in the film. Because I obviously think that I'm very tough with men in my films. It's a critique. And it's a portrait man that I don't want to look like, you know, especially in that film. And it's so it's a way for me to exercise, you know, like some bad aspect of our nature, and so I think it's that destructive thing is very present, among I think among the human nature, and it always ends up in a sort of destruction, and I think that's that's much more close to the patriarchy than to anything else.
There's a lot of things that are being left unsaid. There's a lot of insular feelings one might have, and there's like this beautiful marriage between shame, desire, hate, and love. Talk to me about creating tension, breaking tension, and seeing, like you said, you strip away the screenplay. You essentially drowned it for this film. How much input does your ensemble have in creating that atmosphere and creating different levels of tension without explicitly saying it? There's a lot of non-said in this film, and I just found it remarkable how there's all these enjeux, we say in French, there's all these things that are happening.
Yes, they're kind of hidden. I knew that I was going into that film, which is probably the different, thing in that film for me is that but I think it's on all my films is that I'm not only focusing on one main conflict. It's like it's a multiple. There's multiple things happening with multiple characters, and I'm just letting and that's the kind of unusual structure of the film. And so it takes you on different, you have of course the coming of age, thing. You have the reunion of the friends, with Blake and Albert. You have and you have this kind of a strange triangle also with Blake, Jeff, and Alyosha, and it's just that it just comes naturally because I'm really trying to, when I write, I'm really trying to free myself from all the conventions and everything that we learn in bad schools or
in cinema in general.
In cinema in general, and as a viewer, I want to please myself in a sense that right now, I think that we are in a time where TV is stealing a lot of stuff from cinema. And they're stealing the technique. They're stealing a lot of from the language, a lot of, and I really think that if we want cinema to remain as an art form, cinema needs to do things that TV is not doing, And what is that? It's unnecessary scenes. It's breaking the tone.
Allowing things to breathe.
Yes, scenes where we can be contemplative and avoid the kind of consume addiction that TV is taking, and so it's like cinema. In a way, it's all the defaults of cinema that makes it still kind of a pertinent art form.
Yes.
And so that's why that's why I try to really free myself from in writing by just letting my personal bliss and my personal obsessions and put that in the film. And without thinking about does it make sense to have that many conflict, in the same film, or does it make sense to break the film at the end with a song, that is stealing a bit from musical, or to end up the film with a kind of a strange dream where I'm obviously playing with the spectator also, and so it's like. It's just really what stimulates me to put all the a 4 minutes long rock lobster scene, that, and those moments that there are the moments that I prefer in the film at the end, because they're the moments that are completely like it's getting out of the convention, and sometimes it succeeds, sometimes it doesn't, because there's always a risk that I'm taking, about also the length of the film. I don't know why the length is a problem right now in cinema. Everybody's complaining when the film is more than 2 hours.
I want to say it's not.
But it's strange, because it's like the people, they waste their weekend watching binge like series, and then they complain, they watch for hours, and then they complain about the length of a feature film, which makes me really like I don't understand it. Me personally, I like it when I go to see like an Uribij Celan film, and I know that I'm going to be like taking into this universe for 3 hours, and I just leave myself go, and that's actually the films I want to see in the theater. That's actually the films that I want to,
I want to say my favorite films of the year: yours, The Brutalist, April, and Anora. And what do they all have in common? There's fractures in the film. It's not always tonally the same, and there's length. You allow me, the spectator, to be immersed in the world.
Exactly.
To share multiple paths and multiple journeys.
And it's such a beautiful thing about cinema to get that. Maybe it's the most important thing for me is the films we really like, the films we want to live in, the film we are immersed into an atmosphere, a mood that is completely different and unique. And this is, probably most of us who are cinephiles, I'm sure that this is what struck us at the beginning, is to enter a universe. And for me, this is more important even than the story.
I don't want to color the moral center of the film, but I love how your protagonist, we sort of forget that there's a protagonist, that there's a specific person who, in the hierarchy of characters, it's I want to say it's her story. But what I was impressed by is that we forget, we forget that we're seeing, or we're understanding her world through her eyes. And I was curious if that was a conscious decision.
You're talking about Alyosha?
Yes.
Yes.
That character.
Yeah.
Am I off base?
No, you're not off base. I mean, actually, there's maybe even a kind of a movement and a switch of point of view during the film, but
yes.
it's for the viewer to decide. But we had those discussions also with my cinematographer Balthazar. I mean, for me, it was very important. It was maybe like I think that I remember that I discussed this more, this with him and also with Aurélia, but it was like the importance that slowly in the film she takes over the point of view, and but there's a kind of switch, because obviously at the beginning we are on a lot with Jeff's point of view.
Yes.
And then there's this kind of a switch, and when at the end we are even also entering her dream.
Yes.
And maybe the song is also part of her dream,
yes.
which is a possibility, and it was so important for me that at the end. She has the last word, which is also the name of my favorite cocktail, by the way. But she really needed to have the last word, and I knew that so yes, the whole script goes into that direction, because for me at the end. Also, the fact that she has those writing ambition, which are it's funny what she when she's talking. But I'm not making fun of her, but it's also very funny because it's actually a novel that I started when I was younger. That she's that she's describing, and it's just like so candid and beautiful when she talks about it, and very seriously. And then Jeff is completely like he's not there yet. He's completely immature. He's completely above. In a way, I think that the women in the film are above the jungle of the men fighting each other's, and
the adults in the room revert to teenagehood or childhood behaviors.
Exactly.
Essentially,
yeah, exactly.
What I wrote is like, not only is she physically saving people, she's also She's saving people from lifelong trauma. Right, it's not her responsibility, but she's helping Jeff in so many ways. I mean, she's playing a shrink, she's playing a mother. She's not only assessing all the emotional trauma and turmoil that she has to go through, but she has to save face for others.
But that's a lot for her to take, and that's why at the end with the Emily Dickinson poem, They shut me down in prose. It's for also a way for her to free herself from all that that heaviness, and that heaviness that was coming from the men, and also the men who tried to objectify her, along the story, and at the end it's really an affirmation of her as a subject, and as a complete multi-dimensional subject, and I think that. For me, it's also possible that she's the one who's going to write a book about what she had experienced, and so in a way I put all my hope, and it starts with her with also like that scene when she's looking at that forest being completely destroyed, in completely in hide, and then you have this path where she goes. And where at the end it's like because the way I read the poem it's beautiful, and I don't want to because there's multiple way to read also Dickinson, but I think that she was trying about she was actually talking about her own style and how people wanted it because she was completely like a rebel, and she was bringing something completely different to poetry that has never been before her, that never been done before her, and I think she was talking about this way that they tried to kind of stick her to a sort of convention, and she wanted to free herself from that convention, and I this is also a theme that is coming back from that is also in all my films, is the necessity of keeping that young beautiful flame you have when you're young, and with the hope and the passion and the expectations. It's try to keep this intact as much as possible, even if the world outside is tough, because obviously the people are going to try to break your dreams and try to break your what's pure in you in some ways, and I think she's the example of letting that and like I want to fly now by my own, and but it's true that a guy like Jeff he takes lessons from her, of course.
Big time.
Yeah, big time. Because he accepts also the fact that she's, not sharing his emotions, and he accepts it, totally.
I really like how the adult world and young adult world collide here. But I was really, I thought it was so impressive the language that you and Balthazar use in how it's almost like I felt as if I was in an Altman film, but in a confined space, and like what you choose and where you choose to put the camera, and like the slight zooms and the slight tilts, and then there's a couple of moments where you go back and there's like slight pans, and I wanted to get a sense of how you communicated the desire to have the camera sort of like an active participant. I mean, from the viewer standpoint, we're very much invested in, like, I'm looking not at arguments, but I'm looking at how people feel ashamed of the conversation that's happening. I'm zoning in people smoking cigarettes, and like how they've probably seen patriarchal behavior like this before, and they relate to it on some level. Like, I thought there was just so much stuff happening, and I just wanted to get a sense of how those scenes were built, and sort of like the communication between you and Balthazar, and specifically for those dinner sequences.
Yeah, those dinner sequences. Yeah, because I wanted to I knew that I was going to make a long film, because obviously I was also shooting most of the film in long shots, and it was very important first, for me, that we felt like we are like sitting at the table with the people, and we are, and the film is basically also. I think it's mostly shot a little bit of a low angle, So we are never, above the characters. We are really at their level, and and it's also such an important thing, because the way also I treat, I'm talking about, of course, like, I'm putting the finger on, critical aspect of the men in the film, but I'm also trying to, on the other hand, I'm also trying to be absolutely not judgmental. And I hate films when they come with a kind of a moralistic bias at the end, and they don't trust the intelligence or of the own moral of the viewer. Okay, and sometimes I think that the way you receive a film, that a film that leaves you a bit of freedom is telling you more about you than about the intention of the directors. For instance, if you think that Blake I'm not judging him enough, and he gets away with the fact that he's been doing terrible things, and you think that I'm not condemning enough, which I think it's not true, because he obviously he will end up alone. He's losing a friend, he's losing many people. Also Millie. So if you think that he's that I make him like there's no problem, he's a good guy because he's crying, when he's, then I think it tells more about yourself than your judgment than my intentions.
Yes.
And so that's always very interesting. But anyways, the dinner scenes, it was meant to be, I was so afraid to have a film that was going to be too long that I was planning to cut into it. But then we started the shooting, and we shot the whole scenes at the end, which was a kind of it was the best the decision.
Yes.
That I made, because everybody was in place in terms of the characters. Everybody knew where they were standing. It was like, we had like we shot. We had like 40 days of shooting behind us, and then we did the main courses, which are the dinner scenes. And then I realized that when we did the first shot, and I really wanted to have everybody in the same shot, that was going to be like maybe the main, but then I realized, that it was so strong, like without having to cut into it. And the first dinner scenes, because we also shot them chronologically, yeah. And so there was also this idea of being sitting at the table, maybe more on the point of view of an outside guest, but also the fact that the young people, for instance, they're not talking too much, and there's not so much they really, it's Blake and Albert who are.
They're assessing a lot.
Yes, they want to.
Taking in a lot of information.
They want also the attention. And that's also part of the problem. But then we can identify more to the people who are more silent, and everyone is also reacting such in a nice way. Like every actors, they really keep in characters. If you wanna, I was always impressed. Like I think that in good films, look at the people who are not talking in the film and how they react, how they remain in their characters.
Yes.
How they keep on. They don't give up because they're not the one talking.
And there's also an evolution in what they're thinking at a given moment, because they're hearing stuff, they're taking in information, and also assessing how they feel about it. So I thought it was really interesting seeing how everybody has different skews. Les enjeux for each of them is I want to say, not necessarily in parallel, not in sync. You could be sitting next to the same person. You could be sitting next to somebody, and you're filtering what's happening in front of you in a completely different way.
Also, no, because you make me think of something else. Because you were talking about like the children table, and that's very interesting, because even though they experience a tough journey there, the young people in the film, it's tough learning, but they will obviously get something out of it, and learn so much about the adults and so much about life, and and I think it's so important, to because I like the intergenerational aspect of the film, and it's something that me as a young person, At a very early age, we were mixed, around the table at the dinner tables with the friends of my parents and uncles, and we learned so much from that. It's so important not to separate it. And sometimes I see like families where they are being separated. They separate the two worlds, and the kids they're not even eating at the same hours of their parents. I think this is completely insane.
It's almost criminal.
So my young Leonard is going to for sure be sitting around the table with us.
Good. And getting philosophical discussions. Hey, this is Eric from IONCINEMA.com. If you want to support us, subscribe below. For more reviews, interviews, film festival coverage from Sundance, Cannes, Toronto, you want to check out these guys on this side.